Section 55 of Villette by Charlotte Bronte. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Leanne Fortune, Section 55. Thus I closed my musings. Good night left my lips in sound. I heard the words spoken, and then I heard an echo, quite close. Good night, mademoiselle, or rather good evening. The sun is scarce set. I hope you slept well. I started, but was only discomposed a moment. I knew the voice and speaker. Slept, monsieur? When? Where? You may well inquire when, where. It seems you turn day into night, and choose a desk for a pillow. Rather hard lodging. It was softened for me, monsieur, while I slept. That unseen gift-bringing thing which haunts my desk remembered me, no matter how I fell asleep. I awoke pillowed and covered. Did the shawls keep you warm? Very warm. Do you ask thanks for them? No. You looked pale in your slumbers. Are you homesick? To be homesick one must have a home, which I have not. Then you have more need of a careful friend. I scarcely know any one, Miss Lucy, who needs a friend more absolutely than you. Your very faults imperatively require it. You want so much checking, regulating, and keeping down. This idea of keeping down never left Monsieur Paul's head. The most habitual subjugation would, in my case, have failed to relieve him of it. No matter what did it signify. I listened to him, and did not trouble myself to be too submissive. His occupation would have been gone had I left him nothing to keep down. You need watching and watching over, he pursued, and it is well for you that I see this, and do my best to discharge both duties. I watch you and others pretty closely, pretty constantly, nearer and oftener than you or they think. Do you see that window with a light in it? He pointed to a lattice in one of the college boarding houses. That, said he, is a room I have hired, nominally for a study, virtually for a post of observation. There I sit and read for hours together. It is my way, my taste. My book is this garden. Its contents are human nature, female human nature. I know you all by heart. Ah, I know you well. Saint Pierre, the Parisienne, cette maîtresse femme, my cousin Beck herself. It is not right, monsieur. Comment? It is not right? By whose creed? Does some dogma of Calvin or Luther condemn it? What is that to me? I am no Protestant. My rich father, for though I have known poverty, and once starved for a year in a garret in Rome, starved wretchedly, often on a meal a day, and sometimes not that, yet I was born to wealth. My rich father was a good Catholic, and he gave me a priest and a Jesuit for a tutor. I retain his lessons, and to what discoveries, grand Dieu, have they not aided me? Discoveries made by stealth seem to me dishonorable discoveries. Puritain, I doubt it not. Yet see how my Jesuit system works. You know the Saint Pierre? Partially. He laughed. You say right, partially, whereas I know her thoroughly. There is the difference. She played before me the amiable, offered me pâté de velours, caressed, flattered, fawned on me. Now, I am accessible to a woman's flattery, accessible against my reason. Though never pretty, she was, when I first knew her, young, or knew how to look young. Like all her countrywomen, she had the art of dressing. She had a certain cool, easy, social assurance, which spared me the pain of embarrassment. Monsieur, that must have been unnecessary. I never saw you embarrassed in my life. Mademoiselle, you know little of me. I can be embarrassed as a petite pensionnaire. There is a fund of modesty and diffidence in my nature. Monsieur, I never saw it. Mademoiselle, it is there. You ought to have seen it. Monsieur, I have observed you in public, on platforms, in tribunes, before titles and crowned heads, and you were as easy as you are in the third division. Mademoiselle, neither titles nor crowned heads excite my modesty, and publicity is very much my element. I like it well, and breathe in it quite freely. But, in short, here is the sentiment brought into action, at this very moment. However, I disdain to be worsted by it. If, mademoiselle, I were a marrying man, which I am not, and you may spare yourself the trouble of any sneer you may be contemplating at the thought, and found it necessary to ask a lady whether she could look upon me in the light of a future husband, then would it be proved that I am, as I say, modest. I quite believed him now, and in believing I honored him with a sincerity of esteem which made my heart ache. As to the Saint Pierre, he went on, recovering himself, for his voice had altered a little, she once intended to be Madame Emmanuel, and I don't know whither I might have been led, but for yonder little lattice with the light. Ah, magic lattice, what miracles of discovery hast thou wrought! Yes, he pursued, I have seen her rancours, her vanities, her levities, not only here, but elsewhere. I have witnessed what bucklers me against all her arts. I am safe from poor Zélie. And my pupils, he presently recommenced, those blanc jeunes filles, so mild and meek. I have seen the most reserved romp like boys, the demurest snatch grapes from the walls, shake pears from the trees. When the English teacher came, I saw her, marked her early preference for this alley, noticed her taste for seclusion, watched her well, long before she and I came to speaking terms. Do you recollect my once coming silently and offering you a little knot of white violets when we were strangers? I recollect it. I dried the violets, kept them, and have them still. It pleased me when you took them peacefully and promptly, without prudery, that sentiment which I ever dread to excite, and which, when it is revealed in eye or gesture, I vindictively detest. To return, not only did I watch you, but often, especially at eventide, another guardian angel was noiselessly hovering near. Night after night my cousin Beck has stolen down yonder steps, and glidingly pursued your movements when you did not see her. But, monsieur, you could not from the distance of that window see what passed in this garden at night? By moonlight I possibly might with a glass. I use a glass. But the garden itself is open to me. In the shed at the bottom there is a door leading into a court, which communicates with the college. Of that door I possess the key, and thus come and go at pleasure. This afternoon I came through it, and found you asleep in class. Again this evening I have availed myself of the same entrance. I could not help saying, if you were a wicked, designing man, how terrible would all this be? His attention seemed incapable of being arrested by this view of the subject. He lit his cigar, and while he puffed it, leaning against a tree, and looking at me in a cool, amused way he had when his humour was tranquil, I thought proper to go on sermonizing him. He often lectured me by the hour together. I did not see why I should not speak my mind for once. So I told him my impressions concerning his Jesuit system. The knowledge it brings you is bought too dear, monsieur. This coming and going by stealth degrades your own dignity. My dignity! He cried, laughing. When did you ever see me trouble my head about my dignity? It is you, Miss Lucy, who are Dean. How often, in your high insular presence, have I taken a pleasure in trampling upon what you are pleased to call my dignity, tearing it, scattering it to the winds, in those mad transports you witness with such hauteur, and which I know you think very like the ravings of a third-rate London actor. Monsieur, I tell you every glance you cast from that lattice is a wrong done to the best part of your own nature. To study the human heart thus is to banquet secretly and sacrilegiously on Eve's apples. I wish you were a Protestant. Indifferent to the wish, he smoked on. After a space of smiling yet thoughtful silence, he said rather suddenly, I have seen other things. What other things? Taking the weed from his lips, he threw the remnant amongst the shrubs, where for a moment it lay glowing in the gloom. Look at it, said he. Is not that spark like an eye watching you and me? He took a turn down the walk. Presently returning, he went on, I have seen, Miss Lucy, things to me unaccountable that have made me watch all night for a solution, and I have not yet found it. The tone was peculiar. My veins thrilled. He saw me shiver. Are you afraid? Whether is it of my words, or that red jealous eye just winking itself out? I am cold. The night grows dark and late, and the air is changed. It is time to go in. It is a little past 8, but you shall go in soon. Answer me only this question. Yet he paused ere he put it. The garden was truly growing dark. Dusk had come on with clouds, and drops of rain began to patter through the trees. I hoped he would feel this, but for the moment he seemed too much absorbed to be sensible of the change. Mademoiselle, do you Protestants believe in the supernatural? There is a difference of theory and belief on this point amongst Protestants, as amongst other sects, I answered. Why, monsieur, do you ask such a question? Why do you shrink and speak so faintly? Are you superstitious? I am constitutionally nervous. I dislike the discussion of such subjects. I dislike it the more because— You believe? No, but it has happened to me to experience impressions. Since you came here? Yes, not many months ago. Here, in this house? Yes. Bon, I am glad of it. I knew it somehow, before you told me. I was conscious of rapport between you and myself. You are patient, and I am choleric. You are quiet and pale, and I am tanned and fiery. You are a strict Protestant, and I am a sort of lay Jesuit. But we are alike. There is affinity between us. Do you see it, mademoiselle, when you look in the glass? Do you observe that your forehead is shaped like mine, that your eyes are cut like mine? Do you hear that you have some of my tones of voice? Do you know that you have many of my looks? I perceive all this, and believe that you were born under my star. Yes, you were born under my star. Tremble, for where that is the case with mortals, the threads of their destinies are difficult to disentangle. Knottings and catchings occur. Sudden breaks leave damage in the web. But these impressions, as you say with English caution, I too have had my impressions. Monsieur, tell me them. I desire no better and intend no less. You know the legend of this house and garden? I know it, yes. They say that hundreds of years ago a nun was buried here alive at the foot of this very tree, beneath the ground which now bears us, and that in former days a nun's ghost used to come and go here. Monsieur, what if it comes and goes here still? Something comes and goes here. There is a shape frequenting this house by night, different to any forms that show themselves by day. I have indisputably seen a something more than once, and to me its conventional weeds were a strange sight, saying more than they can do to any other living being. A nun. Monsieur, I too have seen it. I anticipated that, whether this nun be flesh and blood, or something that remains when blood is dried and flesh is wasted, her business is as much with you as with me, probably. Well, I mean to make it out. It has baffled me so far, but I mean to follow up the mystery. Instead of telling what he meant, he raised his head suddenly. I made the same movement in the same instant. We both looked to one point, the high tree shadowing the great berceau, and resting some of its boughs on the roof of the first class. There had been a strange and inexplicable sound from that quarter, as if the arms of that tree had swayed of their own motion, and its weight of foliage had rushed and crushed against the massive trunk. Yes, there scarce stirred a breeze, and that heavy tree was convulsed, whilst the feathery shrub stood still. For some minutes, amongst the wood and leafage, a rending and heaving went on. Dark as it was, it seemed to me that something more solid than either night shadow or branch shadow blackened out of the boles. At last the struggle ceased. What birth, succeeded this travail? What Dryad was born of these throes? We watched fixedly. A sudden bell rang in the house, the prayer bell. Instantly into our alley there came, out of the berceau, an apparition, all black and white, with a sort of angry rush close past our faces, swept swiftly the very nun herself. Never had I seen her so clearly. She looked tall of stature and fierce of gesture. As she went, the wind rose sobbing, the rain poured wild and cold, the whole night seemed to feel her. End of section 55. Recording by Leanne Fortune.